Hi, I'm Astrologer Penny Dix, and welcome to my in-depth look at this month's full moon in Libra, and it's on April the 13th. So let's see how this potentially harmony-based full moon is going to unfold and affect us. So, of course, this full moon is going to, now I'm recording this just to let you know, a week before. So I'm recording this actually on Sunday, the 6th of April. So I will, of course, by the time this is actually uploaded, which may not be till Wednesday or Thursday, depending when Jerry does all his technical whiz-kid bits, I will not know what will have unfolded over the next few days. But I do know that this is going to be another kind of challenging week in many ways. But with Mercury now stationed direct, Venus going direct around the same time as the full moon, and Venus is in Pisces when she goes direct, this is going to affect the energy of this full moon. So I think what we'll do is we'll get the wonderful Jerry to get the chart up. There we are. There we go. And as you can see, we have a full moon in Libra at 23 degrees and 19 minutes. And what I meant to say is it's on the 13th of April. So let's just first of all have a think about Venus, because Venus, of course, I think is rather a key planet at the moment because of the disruption there has been the week before I recorded this in the world economy, and also what may or may not still be unfolding in quite a tumultuous way in the week leading up to this full moon. So Venus going direct, Venus rules Taurus. It also rules Libra, where the full moon is. So therefore, it's a significant planet in this astrological chart. The fact that Venus goes direct soon after the full moon is a very positive sign, because what I feel it infers is that now things can start to repair. Venus, remember, is in Pisces and is conjunct Saturn. Saturn is almost in Pisces, kind of holding a wall of Pisces water in her way, saying, you've got to get past me first. You've got to time this right, is what I think Saturn is saying. And doesn't that go with everything when it's concerned with money? Because remember, Venus, as I said, rules Taurus. Taurus is all about finances, the economy, value. I mean, Venus is also about relationship and love. But, we often get lost in Pisces in thinking about the romanticism that Venus can perhaps represent in Pisces, rather than the fact that the world economy just tanked. So, it's interesting to see that, at the beginning of the week we had Mercury going direct. Now we've got Venus going direct, and I think that's a positive sign because it rules the full moon. But let's have a look at the configuration of this full moon, because now if you look across to the 7th house, you'll see Mars in Cancer at 27 degrees. So it's not exact, but it is actually making a square to both the full moon in Libra and the Sun, and Chiron, the wounded healer, in Aries. So we need to kind of keep that somewhere in our mind. And of course, Mars is ever approaching the last degrees of Cancer, and very soon it moves back into Leo. And then we're going to already be in the energy, which we don't get the exact alignment until the 27th of April, of the Mars-Pluto opposition. So the energy in general around this full moon is shifting, changing, and what I'm getting is a simmering pot. Because we have Mars about to move into Leo, fire. Mars rules Aries. Therefore, Venus rules Libra, the feminine. Mars rules Aries, where the sun is. So you've actually got this need to balance the masculine and the feminine, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. So how do we do that? Because it feels as if with Chiron conjunct the sun in Aries, that the sun, the masculine, is deeply wounded currently. And I think the sun in this instance, because it's in opposition to the moon and how the moon can represent the people, is showing how deeply wounded and knocked off balance are the people. And Mars in Cancer is really, I think, expressing the anger that people have at the what feels like injustices given out by the effects of what's been going on in the world economy. And it's interesting because, you know, that's in direct conflict with a full moon in Libra, which is about balance, harmony, and justice. So we've got this misnomer, we've got this dysfunction. It doesn't quite fit, it doesn't quite match. And, you know, we still have Uranus in Taurus, the sign that Venus rules, sextiling Saturn and Venus. And of course, Venus is going to come back and be exactly conjunct Saturn in a few days. So the concentration of energy at the end of Pisces and the beginning of Aries is highly symbolic for the way we can expect the next, if you like, calendar month till the next full moon in May will unfold. The new moon in April is in Taurus, round about the same time as the Mars-Pluto opposition. So again, we're going to have some kind of crescendo of energy, because it feels like with this full moon that on one level, I think it's saying long term, we will gain the balance and harmony and justice that is required, not necessarily what we personally require, but it will be what is best for everybody. And then, hang on, my chart just did something silly. There we go, got it back. I'm here. Mercury is still retrograde today when I'm recording these, so I'm going to have these little glitches. So Mars in Cancer is also, of course, apart from squaring the full moon, trining Mercury and Venus in Pisces. So there's quite conflicting energies floating around with this Libran full moon. And that to me is actually highlighting the need for serious discussion and not getting too emotional, because I think whilst Mars is in Cancer and Venus is still in Pisces, there is this tendency, this propensity towards just really getting angry and really getting upset and really reacting instead of responding to everything that's going on. I mean, I think well, when I'm recording this on the 6th, we're already building up to this energy, and I can feel myself on, not particularly around what's been going on in the world, although it affects me, it affects everyone. There's no one it's not affecting. But I'm finding my fuse is short, and I'm finding it hard to feel positive. And I don't like when I'm caught in that kind of negative, reactive state. But what I do know is that once I get down and start recording these videos, and I push myself to go through and work with the astrology, by the end of the recording of them, oh, I feel so much better. That's why astrology is such a wonderful tool. It doesn't matter whether you want to work with it, do a channel, see clients or not. Learn it for your own benefit. To sit down and really be able to objectively look at your chart, or at the chart of the moment, or of the chart of how it affects, the President of the United States, the President of Russia, the President of Ukraine, the Prime Minister of Israel. These kind of abilities to see how the energies are affecting us can bring us a sense of understanding and timing and solution. So it is an incredible tool. So I really encourage you all to learn your astrology. Let's see what else we have going on around the energy of this full moon, because let's see, on a personal level, it is about relationships and partnerships on one level and how we relate to each other. Is there an opportunity with this full moon to bring closure to a difficulty that has been around in a friendship or relationship? Is it an opportunity to reconnect with someone whom you've lost touch with? Someone with whom perhaps the balance and harmony had gone not there. Because it can bring that clarity, either perhaps to move on in a situation where two of you have been on opposing ends of the sort of the seesaw. And it can help you either heal, because remember, we've got Chiron, our centaur, our wounded healer, conjunct the sun. It can bring healing and closure or continuation. And it may help you with this energy to have the insight that you need to understand why, say, a particular situation, friendship, relationship, had problems. Also, I think it's important to think back to the solar eclipse we had on March the 29th, because events that were happening around that time can resurface. So, for the life of me, I can't remember what was happening. I'd have to look in my diary to see what was happening for myself. And this is again where astrology can be so helpful, because all these lunar events kind of synchronize, they link up. So I think it's a time practically to reflect on relationships. Try and find balance where it isn't existing. And maybe find a way to find closure in situations that have caused you a great deal of maybe unhappiness or pain, to make way for new beginnings. And just finally, before we bring this to a close, it's just to remind you that both the Sun and Chiron that are actually conjunct at this full moon, we can't forget this Chiron edge. Something has been deeply wounded, whether that's personally, in relationships, or depending on what part of the chart the full moon falls in, will determine the area of your life where this wounding lies. And remember, that's in Aries and Libra. Now, when I do my astrobite for the 13th, for the full moon, I will, as I've started doing, do a very brief run through of each individual zodiac sign and let you know where in your chart you can expect the changes or the effects of this full moon energy to take effect. So I think the most important thing to remember is that we've got this ongoing energy of Uranus in Taurus, and remember it's conjunct Algol, the fixed star Algol, which is literally, the literal kind of traditional old-fashioned meaning is beheadings. Let's bring that into the 21st century and say losing one's head, or a leader loses power, loses control. Now, Uranus is still sextiling Saturn, Venus, and widely now Mars. And Mars, in turn, is trining Saturn and Venus. I refer you to the astrobite I did for, I think it was for Saturday, the 5th of April, where I go in depth into that Uranus sextiling Mars and Saturn and Venus, and the trine between Mars and Saturn and Venus, because that will explain a lot. But let's see if I can just put this all now into a small little nutshell. And at this point, we'll ask Jerry to magically remove the chart. And it goes. Okay, so all full moons bring change of some description. Sometimes we're happy with the change, sometimes not. I think potentially this could be an unusual full moon in that we're going to see more peaceful protests on the street because of the proximity of Eris to Chiron and the Sun. And Eris, remember, is our dwarf planet representing rebellious behavior and just being completely disobedient. So we've already seen it in Europe, in America. I think we're going to see more of it. But I think because it's a trine, because it's a trine from Saturn to Mars and a sextile to Uranus, I think it will be, which is Saturn I'm talking about now, they will be controlled. So I don't see things getting, at this point, out of control. Although with Uranus present, you can never be too sure because Uranus is so unpredictable. And I do think that there will be heads rolling in terms of people in important positions losing their positions. Now, we can interpret that in whatever way we like. But I suspect we might be quite pleased about it. There we go. On that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me for this in-depth look at the full moon in Libra. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, if you would like to have a one-to-one session with me, go to my website, pennydix.com. Email me at penny@pennydix.com, and we'll see what we can sort out. It'll certainly now, of course, be beyond Easter and into May. Okay, on that note, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.